Well, welcome to Tacoma, Calvary. I'm Pastor B, and this is today's Walk in the Light. And today, we're talking about a pretty serious subject of the danger of being a religious Pharisee. And I think it'd be easy for us all to say, well, that can't possibly be me. I'm not a religious Pharisee. But it'd be even more important for us to seek the Lord and say, Lord, would you search my heart to see if there's some kind of a religious Pharisee that's inside of me? If you look in the dictionary and you looked up the word pride, you would get a definition similar to this, of a feeling or a deep pleasure or a satisfaction that's derived from one's own achievements or the achievements of those of whom that person is closely associated with. It's also the quality or having an excessively high opinion of oneself or one's importance or self-importance. From the Greek, the word is alonzonia, and in the Greek, the word actually means empty or braggart talk. To brag in talk. It's insolent and it's an empty assurance which trusts in its own power and resources, and it shamefully despises and violates divine laws and human rights. In Mark's Gospel, it says in Mark chapter 7, it says, "Then the Pharisees and some of the scribes came together to him." So they came to Jesus, having come from Jerusalem. So these are the high-minded religious. It says, "Now when they saw some of his disciples eat bread with defiled," that is, with unwashed hands, it says, "they found fault." They were fault finders. The definition of a fault finder is a person who habitually, that's the word, habitually finds faults. It's a person who complains, who objects, especially in petty ways. Now, one of the things I can be assured of is a Pharisee won't watch this video. Or if a Pharisee does watch this video, what will the Pharisee do? Well, they'll probably find fault. You see, we love the words of Jesus when it gets us out of things that we don't want to do. Well, I'm not Jesus is what we would come up with. But Jesus commands us to love, but he doesn't command us to find fault or complain. And you and I may not be Jesus, but we have the Holy Spirit that abides in us. And if we have the Holy Spirit abiding in us, then we have all the power that we need. Now imagine if you are a fault finder, constantly finding fault, habitually finding fault and complaining. Imagine if every time you found fault with somebody or something and you constantly went to them and you told them their faults and told them their faults and told them their faults. Imagine what kind of relationship you would have with them, but you don't do that. A fault finder does not do that. A religious Pharisee, they don't do that. In fact, many of the times we see the Pharisees in the scriptures, when Jesus responded back to them, they would grumble under their breath one to another. That's what a fault finder does. But they do this often because by finding fault in others, it actually, in your own mind and heart, lifts you up just a little bit above the person or the thing that you're finding fault in. So the question is, do you find fault? Are you a fault finder? And if you have the Spirit of God in you, then you can ask God to reveal that to you. And the next time you find fault, you can say, oh my goodness, I do have this fault-finding heart. And then each time it comes up, the Lord revealing that to you will allow you then to bring it to the Lord. You see, finding fault is, again, just a way to reduce another person in your own mind and lift you up higher than that person. And can I say, that's not love, and that's not how Christ would respond. Because Paul writes in 1 Corinthians, he says in verse number 4 of chapter 13, he says, love, agape, unconditional, lay down your life for your friend kind of love. What does it do? Well, it suffers long and it is kind. Love does not envy. It doesn't parade itself. It's not puffed up. It doesn't behave rudely. It does not seek its own. It's not provoked. It thinks no evil. It does not rejoice in iniquity, but it rejoices in the truth. It bears all things. It believes all things. It hopes all things. It endures all things. Love never fails. But a fault-finding heart violates the very love commandment that Paul wrote in 1 Corinthians. If you're a fault finder, don't take this lightly. Seriously, do not take it lightly. Ask God to search your heart. And the beautiful thing is this, is that God is a God who forgives. But if you continue on in fault finding and complaining, listen, that does not honor the Lord. And I think about Proverbs chapter 6, where it says, starting in verse number 12, it says, a worthless person, a wicked man walks with a perverse mouth. He winks with his eyes, he shuffles his feet, he points his fingers. Perversity is in his heart. He devises evil continually. He sows discord. Therefore, his calamity shall come suddenly. Suddenly, he shall be broken without remedy. You see, being a fault finder, again, is easy in your own mind. It lifts you up above others in your own mind. But God doesn't want you to be a religious Pharisee. In fact, what he said to the Pharisees was, listen, you are whitewashed tombs. You are clean on the inside. You are beautiful you are clean on the outside. You're beautiful on the outside. But inside, you are simply dead man's bones. So does that mean that a Christian that's a fault finder is not necessarily a Christian? Well, John writes in the book of 1 John, if you hate your brother, you don't even know God. So it is a place that we really have to get before the Lord and say, Lord, would you search my heart? I do not want to be a religious Pharisee. I want to be one who loves, and I want to be one who honors, and I want to be one who grows in the Lord. Come join us at Tacoma Calvary, 1201 South J Street. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and you can find us on YouTube. God